Today we have one goal and one goal only, and that is to get the STI back on the road. Not this one, but the 07, the Hawkeye, the one that's going to one of you guys. But first, we need a good old cold start for the boys. Oof. This thing sounds so freaking good, man. Let's run to the Subaru dealer and get those hoses that we need. So there's only, what, 1 day left on the giveaway, which is pretty bizarre. We're tuning the car on Monday. The car hits the dyno Monday, and today's currently Saturday. So the plan is, provided we can get the first start done today, I'll do all the braking BS today. Tomorrow, I'm gonna stack a couple 100 miles on it. I'm just gonna go freaking drive the car, make sure everything is good, and then Monday we'll be hitting the dyno, which is very, very exciting. Hoping for about, 380 to 400 wheel on gasoline, on pump 92 octane. Ethanol, it would be mid fives, but I don't care to give someone a 550 wheel horsepower STI. There's a lot of sauce. Not as much as this old girl, but still a lot. All right, so I got my new hoses here. Before I do anything, I'm gonna go ahead and get them swapped out. Otherwise I'll forget, and I'll put coolant in it with the hoses off and have a big old leak. And that will be frustrating. That was a little hairy. The studs on the motor mounts weren't through the subframe, and then she dropped in. Felt like the car was gonna fall on me. New hoses are on. We can move forward. So the first thing we need to do today to get this party started is re-powder coat this intake manifold. This is the factory STI manifold, and it is not in good shape whatsoever. This is right on top of the motor. It is very important to have nice looking. So let's go ahead and get it completely stripped, all this factory coating off. I think it's just paint, honestly. Definitely not powder coat, because powder wouldn't do that. And get it re-powder coated. So we have the PCV valve right here, which is a 19 millimeter. Sheesh, that is freaking tight. When in doubt, impact it out. And then this nipple right here is for the brake booster. Pop those guys off. This thing is ready for the stripper tank. Into the tank of doom she goes. And a couple seconds later, this thing is 100% bare. Look at that. The manifold is fully plugged and masked off. Let's get this thing in the oven, get it gassed out, the pre-bake cycle, and get it powder coated. So I have 3 different powders that are all a textured or a wrinkle powder: Desert Crimson Red, Desert Red Wrinkle, and Hot Sea Red. I'm not sure which one of those would be closest to the factory intake manifold, but what I'm trying to do is get as close as possible to the Grimspeed alternator cover. I'm thinking the Desert Crimson Red is going to be the ticket. Let's go ahead, spray this out on the manifold, and see how it looks. So it does look like it's a little bit darker, but it's gonna be really hard to tell until it fully cures and bakes out, because it does change color as it cures. So as we wait on the intake manifold in the oven, there's quite a bit more things we can do. We need to do all the bell housing hardware, the starter, clutch slave. We can start working on some exhaust stuff with the external wastegate, the downpipe, the dump tube, all that good stuff. The intake manifold can pretty much go on last, along with the 3 components up front: alternator, power steering, AC. It's so funny how this build escalated so much. Initially, it was a quick reseal. We were supposed to just get some new gaskets on it, reseal that rear main. Now it's got a fully built motor with a freaking bigger turbo. It's getting a full build. Don't forget the most important thing. Let's lock in that throwout bearing, make sure it fully clips in before we make a ton of progress. There's been times where I'll do a bunch of other work, go to clip that in. It doesn't clip in, and you gotta pull the motor back out. So I like to clip that in, bolt on the slave, hop in the car, and make sure the clutch operates and feels like it should, just in case, ooh, that's close, we have any issues. It feels pretty freaking good. Nice. It just came out of the oven. It is quite a bit more dark of a red than this right here. I prefer that. I'm gonna match this to that and we'll be good to go. Let's go ahead and set up our boost controller. So the factory one bolts here. Now the Grimspeed one, this guy here, should bolt in that same exact location with the mount kit that they include. And if I'm not mistaken, should plug right into the factory harness. So that's how it looks on the mount. Now we do need to add in these little rubber insulators and she can be mounted up. As far as routing this thing with the vacuum lines, we have this little diagram right here. So port 2 on the EBCS is going to go to the external gate side port. Port 3 goes back to the turbo compressor housing. Intake manifold is complete. That is how it's going to look. Intake manifold is complete. That is how it's going to look. And the 2 Grimspeed pieces are refinished and looking freaking perfect. Let's get everything onto the intake manifold, get this old girl in the car, and I think from there we'll probably move on to the exhaust system. Manifold's complete, all back together, TGVs are on, harness on, fuel lines on, fuel rails on. We do need to go ahead and pop the fuel rails real quick, remove the factory injectors, and get a set of ID 1300s with the plug and play adapter harnesses installed. The reason I opted for 1300s instead of a set of 1050s from Cobb was just in case if the person who's lucky enough to win this thing wants to go ethanol, E85, the injectors will be big enough for that. I'm trying to think ahead, you know. Always got to plan ahead. Touch of white lithium on the seals. Really any sort of lubricant will work. Okay, injectors are in. It's super nice having these plug and play adapters. You literally just plug and you play. We are ready for the intake manifold installation. So let's go ahead and slap on a new set of gaskets. OEM only. They're the same left to right. And now we need to kind of, it's going to be a multitask type of thing. We're going to do the turbo inlet along with the intake manifold at the same time. Inlet of choice, of course, being the black unit from Perrin. There we go. Inlet is on. I already have the new PCV hoses and whatnot installed. It's been a while since I did a Subaru. Don't judge me, Subi boys. I know better. Inlet cannot go on yet. That manifold turned out so perfect. It is the most perfect color you can get. Wow, that looks good. Okay. So before I tighten the manifold, I'm gonna snake this inlet in here. So intake manifold's fully bolted down. All wiring connections are done. All fuel line connections are done. Now we're gonna do the 3 goodies up front. These and that. There's a bolt that's underneath the intake manifold that's not very fun to get to. As soon as you get it started, it's easy with a wobble. But getting it started is not very fun. I mean, technically you could do the AC compressor before the intake manifold, and maybe that's the quote-unquote proper way of assembly, but either way it clearly works. We are ready to move on to the exhaust. I know I can fire the car up with no exhaust and all that good stuff, but I just want to get this thing 100% complete before I decide to fire it. So we have the NVIDIA downpipe, this guy here, and the HKS carbon catback, this guy here. I'm gonna start off with removing the current catback that's on the car so we can laugh at it together, because it's terrible. Okay, so we got, should be 3, maybe 4 hangers total, holding this exhaust on. All right, here's a little bit of a difference. So here's the new HKS catback, the old catback, and a side-by-side on the downpipes. As you can see, the external gate's all set up, dump tube's on, it's all plumbed, ready to go. Don't forget your gasket, like I almost did. Gasket goes on, and then downpipe will slither on up there. I'm gonna do a light assembly of the catback on the ground. First hanger's on. It's always fun to get the first one on. I'm gonna do this flange right here first, and then make some adjustments out the back. Everything with the exhaust is complete. It's sitting a little bit outside the cutout on the bumper, and I can't adjust it enough over. It hits the diff, so I might have to, I don't know. I could trim the diff and get it to fit right in the hole, but it's on. I'm not worried about that for now. Let's move on up front. We need to do the intake and the whole entire parent front mount intercooler kit. So I think the proper steps are going to be to get the box in first, which should sit like this. Now we really just have 2 pieces left. This guy here, which that might be backwards. So a plastic piece adapter is gonna go into the inlet like so, and that goes there. And lastly, the filter will go on. All right, so the whole intake system's finished up. Parent inlet to the Cobb SF intake, adapter there. Now all it needs is this very nice, beautiful top cover. What a nice unit. I'm impressed. Intake is fully complete. Went ahead and got the Grimspeed alternator cover on. Man, oh man, that looks good. All that's left is the front mount, the freaking radiator, some fluids. We can do the fuel pump tomorrow. I don't need that for a first start. And that's it. The front mount, radiator, and fluids. Let's go ahead and pull this front bumper off. We can trim it some other day. I need to get this first start, man. That's all I can dream about. I guess I should say that's all I've been dreaming about. Front bumper is gonna get replaced, by the way. I made a big critical error, a boo-boo, I guess you could say, and I cracked it. It ain't just a little crack. It's like Devin ended up ramming it into a curb type of crack. So that is frustrating, but it is what it is. And that fog cover doesn't fit the best either, so let's get it replaced. All right, so the first thing to go on is the front mount itself. It comes pre-installed on the brackets, which is super handy, and screws right where the factory bumper beam would go. Dang, that looks aggressive. Piping is always fun, kind of saying that jokingly. It's a little bit tricky to get sorted out where all the couplers and different pipes go. Enjoy the time lapse. So all the intercooler piping's all finished up. We are ready for the radiator, and Bobby came to join me, and we're gonna do the first start. So let's get the radiator on, the new coil radiator. We gotta get the fans off the old one onto the new radiator, and then we need to build some oil pressure. Are you excited for the first start? Okay. Also, check this out. Unfortunately, we cannot run the Cobb box. It was either don't run the front mount and run the Cobb box, or don't run the Cobb box and run the front mount, which Obviously I chose the front mount option. And then this overflow bottle, we will not be using that either. Look at that, direct swap, Bobby. That's why you have to buy good parts. Hop in the car, homie.
Call me something else.
I don't wanna.
Call me Honey Bunny. You usually open up the door for me.
Okay, let me give you a battery.
That would be nice, homie.
So the first thing you're gonna do is give me fuel pressure to make sure. Our fan got a rod knock. Which fan is that? That is loud.
That is so loud.
Why are they on anyway? It's this fan here. Why are the fans turning on?
That's not normal.
Well, we know she builds fuel pressure. Just go ahead and crank it.
What? What about the fan?
Yeah, it's a little annoying. Crank it for just, there's no oil in it yet, but I just want to make sure it'll crank great.
I don't know if it's in neutral.
It doesn't, you're not starting it, it ain't gonna run. I'm unplugging this stupid fan. Oh, well, I found out why it's making noise, but it shouldn't be on. I'll figure that out tomorrow when I am not tired. All right, well, it cranked fine, so I'm gonna go ahead and put oil in it. And then we're gonna build the oil pressure and fire it. Oil of choice is 2050 VR1. So we got 5 quarts of VR1 in her. Being that it does have the killer repan on it, it takes more oil than a factory car. So now we're gonna go ahead and build oil pressure. And what I'm gonna do is pull off the feed for the turbo, and Bobby's gonna crank it until oil comes out of the turbo feed. So you wanna crank, and then you gotta be quick with it, because when I say stop, that means I'm getting oil everywhere. Set. Good to go. You wanna do the honors of firing it?
Of firing it up?
Not right now, but would you like to start it?
Yes.
You do? All right, crank her some more to get some oil going through the turb ski. Yep. Don't want to kill that there starter.
Well, I don't know how long you want me to do it.
Access port is now installed in the car. Beta with the base map. We're ready for our first start, and Bobby is in the car, and she's gonna hit it in 3, 2, 1. Ripper. Go again. Give me a sec. You know, it's late. Let me plug in my crank sensor. Hit her. She might be a little low on fuel in the injectors. Go again. Hit her again. Try to give her a touch of gas when you fire it. There we go. Oh yeah, that's healthy. All right, killer. Now that we got that out of the way, I'm just gonna toss water in there.
I'm impressed.
You're impressed.
But I'm not impressed how the headlights don't turn off when I tell them to.
I can just unplug the DRL. It's not a big deal. You can't be impressed. Like you said earlier, I've done this a million times. I am impressed with how quiet that motor just purrs.
I'm impressed because usually there are some issues.
Honey, don't call me out like that. As always, I'm gonna start with the cooling system being filled with water, so that in the instance that we have a coolant leak, it's not coolant, it's just water. Bobby, did the motor sound healthy to you?
Very healthy. It was just kind of purring.
Yeah, it sounded pretty good, I'll admit. I mean, technically, I might even just drive it home tonight. It's a little
hairy, honey.
Yeah, all right, fire it. Let's confirm that there's no coolant leaks now. What?
Can I turn it off?
No, leave her running. She's healthy.
Breathe. I can't breathe.
I'll open the door. Listen to how healthy this motor sounds. Man, it sounds good. So smooth. Shout out to Josh for the immaculate base map. Nailed it first try. You know, you could go ahead and give her a slight touch of a rev. All right, that's good, that's good. All right, that thing is healthy. All right, guys, I have now cycled it a few times. Coolant system is fully bled. Went ahead and bled out the power steering. Just checking over the thing, make sure there's no leaks whatsoever. Manifold is a bit close right there, so I might do a little bit of trimming on the U-frame or the subframe, whatever you want to call it. Other than that, no issues to report. Not one single drip of nothing come from this thing. The only thing we need to fix is we need to get this exhaust shifted over, but if you look under here, we do need to do something weird with this diff. I think on a WRX it wouldn't be an issue, but STI, it hits the STI rear diff, so I don't know if I could shave that ear off or somehow clearance the exhaust so it can sit where it needs to sit. Really wish I could drive this thing home tonight, but I'm choosing not to, just because I'm so tired. It's midnight right now, and just in case anything were to happen, I would rather have it be daylight. Well, guys, I could not be more grateful with not one single issue. A lot of times when I do a full build like this, especially in a short time frame, there'll be something, a little tiny coolant leak somewhere, a little bit of an oil leak somewhere. This thing is completely spotless. Actually, we do got one leak right there. A little piece of water dripping out from the exhaust. This was a different build. It felt different because I know it's going to one of you guys. If it's my own car, it's not a big deal if it has a little bit of a leak and I can have time in the future to fix it. But knowing that this car was going to one of you guys, I really had to take my time and just ensure I try to do every single thing to how it should be done, which, I mean, if you think about it, that's how every build should be, which is what I try to do. But a lot of times, like these long freaking days when you get to the end of the day, for example, right now, 11:58 p.m. on Saturday, I've been here all day getting this thing done. It's easy to see something and just cut a corner just to go ahead and get that first start out of the way. And I tried to not do that with this car, because a lot of the times when you do that, you'll then forget what you just cut the corner on, and you'll forget to go back and fix it properly. So yeah, this thing's all good to go. Tomorrow the goal is to get a few hundred miles on it. So I need to come here first thing in the morning. I'm gonna grab the car, I'm gonna go on like a 50-mile drive, come back, cut the filter, change the oil, and just go stack freaking miles on this thing, man. It runs absolutely perfect. Big thank you to Josh Bader for the spotless and flawless base map. As you guys saw, this thing pretty much fired up right away. As soon as it got enough fuel in those rails and injectors and whatnot, she fired up right away. So big thanks to Josh. And yeah, this thing should be hitting the dyno Monday, which is crazy. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you want your chance to get this car, first link down below. Every $3 you spend is one entry to win the 07 STI. I'm excited for one of you guys. It's gonna be sick. And by the way, if you're not local or wanting to fly out here and drive it home, I'm paying for shipping on the car to you. And if you want to fly out and drive it home, I'll be covering your flight and all the gas to drive her home. First link down below. Good night.